go. Good morning. Good morning. Let's go, y'all. Let's go. Let's do this morning. I am so thankful to be here with you. I pray that as you're getting ready to go about your day, that you stopped in for a few minutes this morning for a morning meditation so that we can travel together from Resurrection Sunday to Pentecost, looking at encounters that people had with Jesus, how his words changed their life, how his touch changed their lives, how just knowing him changed their lives forever. So take a moment and share this with someone. I'm sharing right now. All right, share this with someone because someone needs to hear how the Lord wants to make a difference in their lives. We've talked about following Jesus. We've talked about seeing Jesus, the encounters that happened directly after the resurrection. And this week we are looking at seen by Jesus. We started that off by talking about the woman at the well, how Jesus saw her, told her everything about herself, and allowed her then to become one of the first evangelists in the Bible. And so here we are today talking about seen by Jesus, the woman with the issue of blood. And now you may be saying, if you're a male, what does that have to do with me? Well, I tell you, I'm going to dive into some of that today. So let's look at it. Let's first of all look at one of the scriptures. All of the synoptic gospels cover this woman. Matthew, Mark, and Luke all cover her. I chose to pull up Luke, and here it is. And a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years, but no one could heal her. It's interesting because I love it. This miracle that's about to take place is happening simultaneously with Jairus, who had come. Jairus, who was not a Jew, had come and was saying, Jesus, I'm sorry, Jairus was a Jew. He just was not an Orthodox Jew, but he had come and he says, my daughter is near death. We don't know what's going on with her. She is not breathing well. She's about to die. And so Jairus has come to bring Jesus with him to heal his daughter. But on the way, as they're walking, the crowd just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And this woman who has had this issue of blood for 12 years is in that crowd. First of all, she was considered unclean. Anytime a woman in Jewish tradition was having her regular menstrual cycle each month, she was considered unclean. And because of sanitary conditions in the Old Testament, she had to literally go outside the gate while she was experiencing her period. And if she continued to bleed, she was considered unclean until it stopped. Well, imagine 12 years not able to trade and to, not able to do it legally, to trade or go into the synagogue because they couldn't touch money or people or any of those things. And so this woman for 12 years has been ostracized. Now, in today's time, she probably had a uterine fibroid, or she may have had a miscarriage that was not handled correctly. She could have had cancer. So many things caused the bleeding to continue. But because of modern medicine, a woman goes and she gets treatment. And if the treatment doesn't work, then she can even have what they call a hysterectomy, which removes the uterus and the bleeding stops. They didn't have that then. And so this woman walked around 12 years bleeding uncontrollably. And it says she came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak, and immediately the bleeding stopped. Orthodox Jews would wear 4 tassels that came from their garment, and those 4 tassels identified them as Orthodox or practicing Jewish people. And so she said, if I could just touch the hem or the tassel that hangs from him, I will be made whole. Now, this is what happens that I love. In this big crowd, people pressing in on him. I'm sure they were reaching over and they were touching, you think, oh, I'll touch his hair, I'll touch his shoulder. Jesus says, who touched me? When they all denied it, Peter said, Master, people are crowding in and pressing against you. In other words, anybody could have done it. It could have been me. But Jesus said, someone touched me. I know that power has gone from me. There was something different about this touch. Then the woman, seeing that she could no longer go unnoticed, came trembling and fell at his feet. In the presence of all the people, she told why she had touched him and how she had been instantly healed. That could have gotten her death. You mean you're in this big crowd of people, you are unclean, and everyone you touched is unclean? But she told her story anyway. She took a risk. She stepped out on faith. She believed who he was. And then he said to her, daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace. A few things I want to just quickly highlight. Faith requires risk. It requires you stepping out, not being concerned about what other people think, what other people feel. She could have been put to death being in that crowd. Had someone recognized her and pulled her out before she touched Jesus, she could have been stoned to death. She took a risk. Faith requires risk. It requires us to step outside of ourselves, to push past our comfort zone, and to look beyond what other people have to say. True faith arrests God's attention. Just like this woman, when she touched him in the middle of everything going on, simultaneously with Jesus going to someone else's house, he recognized that virtue or power or healing strength had left him. It caught his attention. True faith arrests God's attention. It stops him. He looks, and he says, I will fulfill the need of this person. Sometimes that requires us fasting. It definitely requires prayer. It requires stepping out on faith and saying, God, I need you. I lay hold on what you have for me. True faith captures God's attention. And the last one I wanted to tell you about is God's attention to your faith is not divided. Yes, Jesus was on his way to Jairus' house to touch and heal his daughter. Yes, the crowd was pressing in on him. Yes, there were other people probably yelling, I need healing, Jesus. I need healing. There were probably other people in that crowd who were just as sick as she was. But when Jesus said, virtue has left me, and she came forward, he wasn't listening to that crowd. He was paying attention to her. He heard her story. He saw her. She was seen by Jesus. And because she was seen by Jesus, she received her healing. And the crowd knew. Imagine now if she had gone and touched the hem of his garment and was healed immediately, and she went on about her business. Everybody still would have been calling her unclean. She would have had to prove everything. But Jesus called her out in that crowd, made the announcement, your faith has healed you. You are no longer unclean, pretty much. And he made that announcement in the crowd. This woman's life was restored. His attention is on you. His attention is on you. How are you approaching Jesus? Will you go in faith today? Will you take the risk and say, I need you, Jesus? Oh, how I need you. I don't care what anyone else thinks. I don't care how anyone's looking at me. I need you, Jesus. Have a great day today. Go to him, believe in him, and receive your blessing because he is here right now. Have a beautiful day.